The New York Rangers steal Game 3 of the Panthers-Rangers series as Canada comes up short at the World Hockey Championships. Hey everyone, welcome into Off the Post. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons, Canucks reporter for the Vancouver Sun and the province Patrick Johnston, and Postmedia hockey columnist Bruce Garrioch. And guys, the New York Rangers suddenly 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup final after a stunning OT win in game number 3 in which they were outshot and outchanced by quite a bit. This has become a bit of a hallmark for this Rangers team, Bruce, in the playoffs, where they don't need to have the puck a ton to actually win games. Are they this year's team of destiny?
Well, they're looking like that team of destiny right now because of their goaltending. I mean, I think just think that Shesterkin has been fantastic. And you talk about the shot attempts, guys. I mean, and that's where you have to look. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think that the Florida Panthers have kind of owned that series. But the game is about goaltending, and we saw that in some of these early round series, and we're seeing again here. And Shesterkin, to me, has just been the difference. Now, I think the winner of Game 3 has gone on. I thought I read the stat this morning. Is it 75% of the winners of Games 3 go on to win the series? So driver's seat for sure. I just can't count the Panthers out.
I hate the term steal a game because last time I checked, a goalie's part of your team. So if a guy goes out and scores 3 goals, he doesn't steal the game. And the goalie has an exceptional game, he steals the game. So in this series, by the way, the goaltending's been exceptional both ways. This has been a great goaltended series with both Shesterkin and Bobrovsky. But what's getting me about the Rangers right now, and I go back to the 93 Habs when I'm thinking about this, I thought they were the second best team on the ice 4 of the 6 games against Carolina. And I think they've been the second best team on the ice 2 of the 3 games in this series. So that's 6 of their last 9 games. They're not the better team on the ice, and yet they're getting the majority of the wins. Why is that? Their goalie's playing very well. Not stealing stuff. He's playing very well, as is the other goalie, and they're taking advantage of it. The 93 Habs with Patrick Roy were not the best team a lot of nights, but they kept winning overtime games, and they have a Stanley Cup now to show for that.
The other sport that they play, there's
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's exactly what Steve said. It's that second sport that we cover here. It's called goalie, and Shesterkin has been the best goalie in the series, and that, to me, long and short of it, is why the Rangers are still in it. I do think Bruce is right. I think the Panthers they do so much more offensively. If Shesterkin can keep it going, yeah, maybe the Rangers keep it going, but in the end, it's going to all come down to him and nothing else.
Paul Reinhart, father of Sam, and I think still a Vancouver native,
yes.
Was once asked what the key to playoffs was, and he says it's like real estate. It's not location. It's goaltending.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have definitely seen that a lot in these playoffs for sure. Meanwhile, tell me if you've heard this one before, but Rangers defenseman Jacob Trouba avoided a suspension and was fined just $5,000 for his elbow to the head of Florida's Evan Rodrigues. Steve, should Trouba's latest questionable hit have been more than what he got?
When Jacob Trouba passes in his 70s or his 80s or whatever it happens to be in his life, on his gravestone, it'll say almost suspended. Because how many times have we sat here and looked at a Jacob Trouba hit, an elbow, a shot, something? He plays the closest to the edge of any player in the NHL. And I think you have to go back to maybe the late Brian Marchment to see anyone who played of that level in terms of how he really skirts the rules. And I think every time he does something, and to me, that was a suspendable offense that, because it's playoffs, didn't get suspended. So he got a $5,000 fine, and Paul Maurice says that he hopes his children will be able to eat.
Look, I think that they could have in this case suspended him. I look at that, Patrick, and I say, if you're going to give him a $5,000 fine, and then you've got to give him something, right? Like you have to. I think they could have easily given him a game here just to send a message. You're right, though, Steve. I mean, I watched a player here walk that line throughout his career and never got suspended, and Chris Neal. And I think Trouba does as good a job, as you say, of walking that line where, maybe It was okay to get the fine, but he just didn't quite cross the line and get suspended. I think they could have given him a game here, Patrick. I thought it was somewhat egregious. I don't really believe with the part where people think that the other guy dove, that Rodrigues dove.
The thing that caught me off guard was actually remembering that Trouba got suspended in January for probably a pretty similar incident, and the player didn't get hurt there. Generally, it always seems like the NHL only really cares with these kinds of things if somebody, misses a game or somebody's hurt, and that wasn't the case. And so, I was surprised in the end. Initially, I was like, oh, no, they'll never suspend him. But the whole idea is that they're supposed to talk about repeat offenders the last 18 months. Well, he's been suspended. So I was somewhat surprised that he didn't get suspended here. But then again, it's the NHL, so nothing ever really suspended.
I think it was Colin Campbell years ago who said two regular season games equal one playoff game.
Yes,
so if you're going to get a 2-game suspension in the season, it would be a 1-game suspension in the playoffs. Therefore, if that would have been a 1-game suspension in the season, I guess the Department of Safety thing is no games.
Yeah, I guess so.
I agree with you guys. I think he should have got a game, and I think that was a hit that should have been punished more severely than it was.
I sit here and I watch, obviously, Carson Soucy got suspended for cross-checking Connor McDavid for an act. He didn't mean to do it, but he did it. And the NHL said, you sit for a game. And in the end, it was probably the right call. I just don't see what the difference here is.
And lastly, guys, overseas in Czechia, Canada failed to medal at the World Hockey Championship, losing to Sweden in the bronze medal game. Patrick, people in this country care about Olympic hockey. They care about World Juniors and occasionally World Cups of hockey. But for whatever reason, we don't care about World Hockey Championships. Why do you think that is the case?
Wrong time of the year, man. I've always kind of had a secret love of this event, although I have to admit this year, didn't watch any. Maybe that's because my kids are up at the wrong time and I can't sit down to watch it. But it's that the only time we ever seem to pay any attention is when it's leading into the Olympics, and we don't have the Olympics next year. So I'm not surprised, not disappointed. The storylines are there, but I don't know. It doesn't move the beat for me.
I remember as a kid listening to Peter Maher broadcast these games from World Championships and on my transistor radio, and people would be saying, "What are you listening to?" I would never do that now, and I could watch it 24/7 if I'd like. I just think it's not our best. They're not our best players. They're the best of a bad lot of players. We don't take it as seriously, Steve. I do think you made a good point, though, in your column about the goaltending, where, I think, there has to be some concern about the Canadian goaltending. But it just, I don't care if we're medal or not. I really don't. I think I will say one thing. I think it's sad it's decided by a shootout. To me, let them play to a win, not a shootout. But Steve, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I will say this, and I don't know if you guys have been to World Championships, but I was fortunate enough to be to several of them. And by
Jonesy.
By itself, it is a phenomenal event. It is, especially in the play, it really matters where it's going on. It may not resonate to our snobbish hockey country, but in Europe, it sure plays, and it's a fun of it. It goes on forever. That's the problem with the Worlds. They go on forever, and you get, actually, you're covering it, you get bored halfway through. But that said, the people who were paying attention, I'm going to start with Doug Armstrong and John Cooper, who were both there. Doug Armstrong going to be the Olympic general manager, and John Cooper, who has not been announced yet, will be the Olympic coach. And they were watching players. Who do they like? Who don't they like? Who do they give a shot to? Who might? And so for those players, it matters. And it will matter to see who gets invitations to play for Canada at the Four Nations Cup, at the next All-Star Break the Phony tournament they've got going on for that. But so there is a meaning there. I do take offense to Bruce saying that the players there were not very good, because John Tavares was the captain of Canada. And you know what team he's the captain of in this country? For now, anyhow, for this week. He's still captain of the Maple Leafs. And for how much longer, we don't know.
Yeah, it's hard not to think that a bunch of people went over there hoping that they might be able to get a shot at the Canadian team in a few years' time. But ultimately, we'll talk about that when we get there. As always,
You know who's not going to get a shot? The coach. The coach.
Yes.
He didn't put Connor Bedard on in overtime. That should be a firing offense for anyone.
And I like Andre Tournier. I just cannot figure out what he was thinking.
Talk about overthinking.
He wasn't.
The opposite.
Yeah, definitely not. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Steve Simmons, Patrick Johnston, and Bruce Garrioch, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.